those here awaiting trial. So bad I was here 2 years ago during a cold spell, reporting on detainees with no heat, pounding on windows for help. There was even a congressional inquiry. But take the word of a former inmate I spoke with who goes by Esco.
There are reports that Diddy has stopped eating. This could be because he isn't enjoying the food, but it also could be because he's paranoid that someone is out to get him and may slip poison into his food.
Diddy has since been moved to protective custody. According to a source, it's for people who have either requested protective custody or need protective custody. So it would be for sex offenders and very high-profile individuals. This section houses around 30 inmates in single-man cells with a 500-square-foot recreation deck.
Breaking news. Could Diddy's trial be thrown out entirely? New allegations against the government have sparked talk of a mistrial, and the fallout could be massive. Let's dive into the latest twist in the ongoing legal saga involving Diddy. This one's a bombshell because if true, it could flip the entire case on its head. We're talking about allegations that the government might have violated Diddy's constitutional rights, and not just any rights, his attorney-client privilege. And if you know anything about the legal system, you know that's a huge deal. Here's what happened. During a nationwide jail sweep, investigators seized materials from Diddy's cell. That alone sounds pretty standard, right? But according to his legal team, among the things they took were his own written notes. Notes meant for his defense attorneys. These weren't just random scribbles. These were privileged materials detailing his defense strategies, witness discussions, and trial preparations. In short, the kind of stuff no one outside his legal team should have access to. Now, here's where it gets messy. Diddy's lawyers claim they weren't even told about this seizure until after the government used those notes in a filing to oppose his bail. That's right, they allegedly took his private defense notes, handed them over to prosecutors, and then used them to argue against his release. If this is true, we're looking at a potential violation of the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments. Translation? This could be grounds for a mistrial. And Diddy's team isn't taking this lightly. They filed a motion demanding an emergency hearing to get answers. They want to know who authorized this search, who decided to take these notes, who handed them over to the prosecutors. And most importantly, why didn't anyone tell Diddy's lawyers until now? These are not minor questions. If the government can't come up with a solid explanation and fast, this could unravel the entire case. Why? Because if the court finds that Diddy's right to a fair trial has been compromised, it could force the prosecution to throw out evidence, disqualify their team, or even start from scratch. But here's the kicker. This isn't just about one man's trial. It's about the justice system itself. Love or hate Diddy, he deserves a fair trial. That's not just a legal principle, it's the foundation of our system. If the prosecution's conduct crosses the line, it undermines their case and opens the door for Diddy's defense to argue that he's been set up. And let's be real, this kind of drama is exactly what fuels public perception. You'll have Diddy's supporters shouting about corruption, while his critics argue that he's playing the system. Either way, it's a mess, and the fallout could ripple far beyond this case. But this is only part of the story. There's another layer to this involving the government's claims about Diddy's behavior behind bars, and it's just as shocking. According to prosecutors, Diddy has been anything but a model inmate.
What is more important, the crimes Diddy is accused of, or taking pictures of pieces of paper?
What is more important is everyone's constitutional rights.
They allege that even from jail, he's been trying to manipulate the system and intimidate witnesses. Here's the gist of it. The government says Diddy has been using other inmates' phones to contact witnesses and possibly tamper with evidence. If true, this is a major problem. It suggests that Diddy is actively trying to interfere with the case against him, even while he's locked up. And let's not forget, they also claim he's been using his family to post messages on social media, attempting to sway public opinion and taint the jury pool before the trial even starts. The prosecution is pointing to this behavior as a big reason why he shouldn't be granted bail. They're essentially saying, look, if he's doing all this from behind bars, imagine what he could do if he were out on bail. It's not just about the severity of the charges, it's about the risk of further interference. But there's a twist. While the government is using these claims to justify keeping Diddy detained, Diddy's legal team is flipping the script. They're saying, hold on a second. If you've been intercepting his communications and using them against him, how much of this evidence was obtained legally? It's a classic legal chess match. The prosecution paints him as a manipulator, and the defense argues that the government's own methods are questionable. And here's where things get even more complicated. If the court agrees that some of this evidence was obtained improperly, say through the seizure of his notes or monitoring his calls, it could weaken the prosecution's case. At best, it could lead to certain evidence being thrown out. At worst, it could bolster Diddy's argument that he's being unfairly targeted, giving his defense team even more ammunition to claim he's not getting a fair trial. It's a high-stakes situation, and it's putting the spotlight on both Diddy's actions and the government's handling of the case. Is Diddy really orchestrating all this chaos from jail? Or is the government overstepping in its pursuit to keep him detained? The truth might be somewhere in the middle, but one thing's for sure, this case is getting more and more complicated. And speaking of complicated, let's break down what happens if there is in fact a mistrial in Diddy's case, and why it's more than just a pause button on this legal drama. First off, a mistrial doesn't mean Diddy automatically walks free. What it does mean is that the current trial stops in its tracks. All the time, energy, and resources spent by the prosecution and defense essentially wasted. The case would likely need to be reset and retried, potentially delaying a resolution by months or even years. For the prosecution, this is a logistical nightmare, especially in such a high-profile case. Now, think about what this would do to public confidence in the system. If a mistrial happens because the prosecution mishandled privileged materials or violated Diddy's rights, it's a bad look, plain and simple. It suggests a lack of control, raising doubts about their ability to handle complex, high-stakes cases. And in a case as public as this one, every misstep becomes magnified. On the flip side, a mistrial could be a lifeline for Diddy. It gives his team more time to regroup, fine-tune their defense, and depending on how things shake out, potentially negotiate a more favorable deal. If the mistrial exposes serious flaws in how the government handled the case, it could weaken their position, giving Diddy leverage to push for reduced charges or even dismissal. But here's the catch. A mistrial isn't exactly a win for anyone. It's a grueling process for all parties involved. For the defense, the prosecution, and even the witnesses, it means reliving the case from the beginning. Witnesses may have to testify again, reliving painful or challenging memories. Legal teams will have to go back to the drawing board, reviewing evidence, preparing new strategies, and fighting the same battle they thought they'd already fought. Then there's the psychological toll on everyone involved, including the public. High-profile trials like this don't just exist in a courtroom, they're spectacles. People follow every update, every twist, every revelation. A mistrial prolongs that attention, dragging out the uncertainty and fatigue for anyone invested in the outcome. And let's not forget what this does to the jury pool. If the case gets retried, potential jurors will have already been exposed to the intense media coverage surrounding this trial. That makes it even harder to find an unbiased jury, potentially tilting the scales even further. But here's the real kicker. This is about more than just one case. A mistrial in Diddy's case could set a precedent, opening the door for other high-profile defendants to challenge their trials on similar grounds. It could force courts to reevaluate how evidence is handled, how rights are protected, and how the system balances the scales between prosecution and defense. So, while a mistrial might seem like a reset button, it's anything but simple. It's a disruption, a delay, and for some, an opportunity. But most of all, it's a reminder that in cases like these, the battle isn't just about guilt or innocence. It's about the integrity of the system itself, and what happens when that integrity comes into question. And that's where we'll leave it for now. This case is a web of legal drama, power plays, and unanswered questions, and it's far from over. What happens next could redefine not just this trial, but how high-profile cases are handled in the future. And as always, feel free to leave some love in the comments, smash that sub-aroni button, and check out this next video.